Got there in the end, didn't we? Hello there, and welcome back to Celtic World Order. As always, I'm Steve O'Martin. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you back to the channel here as we take a wee look back at quite a surprising, quite an exciting game actually at Celtic Park in the quarter-finals, because it was Celtic versus Falkirk in the Premier Sports Cup at home, a game that I think going into it, we were all very much confident that we'd get the job done, but I don't think that we thought that it would be quite as challenging, we get quite a game as we ended up did. But nonetheless, it's a result. We find ourselves now moving into the semi-finals at Hampden, and a game against Aberdeen awaits. I wanted Rangers, but I'll take it. So there's plenty to talk about. Before we do that, just want to say welcome back to every single one of you to the channel. If you are a returning subscriber, then thanks as ever for your continued support. We greatly do appreciate it. If you're new, it's a warm welcome yourself as well. Welcome on board here at Celtic World Order. And before you leave, once this video is finished, or even right now, make sure you hit that subscribe, hit that bell icon, get notified every time we go live, every time we do an upload. And if you like what you're seeing here, give it the big thumbs up, because it just helps with that fabled algorithm and helps grow the community here. If you want to get us elsewhere, we're on social media, X at CWPod1888. If you want to help support the channel, and there's many people, the original, of course, is San Fran and 420. They are right in there. They are members, but it's completely optional. Doesn't get you any additional content. It's just a wee way of donation to help run this channel, because everything we do will continue to be 100% free. It'll cost you nothing. It doesn't cost us nothing to put it together. So anyway, yes, what a game to talk about, eh? Quite surprised sitting here. Let me know your thoughts. Get them rolling in. We'll try and get up as many of these as we possibly can. I've got the Germany top on because it was very much a German that came on and turned the game on its head, because Nicholas Kühn, what a performance, and we will get round to speaking about that man. Talk about super sub, talk about impact, talk about picking up from where you left off, and of course we've also got Adam Idah to throw into the mixes, both coming off the bench, both getting a double. Kühn chipping in with some of the assists as well, and as I say, turning that game completely on its head. Something that looked as if it could have been squeaky bum time was turned into, well, domination. And if I do say so myself, probably a wee bit unfair on Falkirk, because I thought that they were absolutely fantastic and they should be given their flowers for what was a very exciting and a very, competitive game. Brendan Rodgers said it himself at the end, maybe a wee bit cheeky, but I liked it, where he says that was actually the hardest game that we've played. They were the best team that we've played at Celtic Park. And look at this. I just want to say thank you. 420 is throwing about some memberships. If you're on the end of one of them, thank you very much. And welcome to whoever it is that gets those. So let's get ourselves into the meat and two veg of the game, because there was a lot to talk about. I think most notably, as we say, look, we're playing Falkirk, right? Don't take it away from them. Newly promoted in the championship. If you're a betting person, you're sitting there and thinking, we're just going to steamroller them. But I didn't think anybody was quite surprised that there was a raft of changes going into the start of the game. We always thought that we were going to rest a couple of guys. We were going to do one or two changes here or there, give folk a wee bit of game time, give them a chance. But I didn't actually think that it was going to be quite as sweeping as this, because this is what we ended up getting. I mean, most notably there, we have a back four that have never, ever played together. Welsh, Trusty getting a debut, Valle getting a debut as well, Ralston coming in for Johnson, and then as you can see as well, Arnott Engels dropping out, keeping with Hatate and McGregor, and Bernardo's the one-for-one swap there. Obviously, we get Kyogo out as well, we've got Kühn out, wholesale changes, I think you'll agree, absolutely. And I think maybe when you look on it in hindsight, what's your thoughts? Was that maybe taking them for granted? Was that maybe downplaying the threat that Falkirk were going to be posing? Or do you think it was, just as I say, trying to be getting guys some game time on the pitch, trying to get some, minutes in the legs and try to see how these guys get on? Because sometimes you'll never know truly what guys do or don't have to offer unless you get them on the park and you get them playing. And I'm pretty sure anybody'd agree that if you're going to play a cup game and you're going to play against a somewhat perceived to be lesser opposition, then of course that is going to be your opportunity to get that done. I can see some comments are flying in as I says we will be trying to get as many of these up as possible. I've had this. I've had Kühn. I've got the hair. It's not quite as long. It's not quite as flowing. I've had Paddy Roberts and all. Whatever, I'll take it. I'd say they're both arguably handsome looking guys, so I'll have some of that. You know what I mean? I wish I'd done money, but there you go. I'll try and get as many of these comments in as I possibly can. As I say, sometimes it can be a hard gig when you are doing these on your own, so I will try my very, very best, and I'll give a wee bit of room even at the end. We'll maybe just put your thoughts and we'll strictly go with what you are thinking out there, and we'll bring them up there. There's a few things that I want to touch on, but yeah, so it's got a wholesale start, changes there that was a bit of a surprise to me, as I say. I think most notably the worry was always going to be that back four. I've been very, very robust at home, not conceded in the league. Of course, we conceded in the cup previously, and well, another two there. But I think a wee bit of that to do with just wholesale changes, particularly at the back. I was quite surprised actually to see Welsh coming in, because Welsh, as we know, had his injury problems, and there wasn't too much any mention that he was going to be more in around the squad or getting opportunities. And then late on, of course, we saw a blast for the past, because we got Malik Narodsky get the cobwebs brushed off him, and he got brought on for very much a cameo. I don't really know what the point of that was, other than maybe just to give him a wee run out, but there we go. And obviously we saw Austin Trusty, £5 million. Let me know what you thought of the performance today. For me, I thought, looking at it, it's hard to judge. I think it would be unfair. I've seen a lot of people who have been writing off certain people after today. That's reactionary. That's what we as fans do. That's perfectly fine. That's what football fandom's all about. You have your right to, instantly react to what you see. I think it would be unfair. Although what I would say is about Austin Trusty and also Vi was they very much looked like guys that hadn't been playing. They looked a wee bit sort of off the pace, a wee bit behind where they needed to be in terms of defensively and positionally. I didn't think they looked massively fit in terms of speed. Now, I'm not particularly familiar with either, but I don't think that they're that slow when they're up to speed at playing game. I thought that they get turned a couple of times. The boy Vi maybe get bullied once or twice, and as I says, turn a pace and trying to get in behind when he get caught. I thought that Trusty was a wee bit sort of flat-footed, but as I says, look, I'm able to take that at face value. I'm able to take that and just say, look, his first opportunity in the team, it's a debut. They've been thrown in. They're playing alongside guys who have never really played with them or don't normally play themselves also. So it's always going to be a wee bit sort of scary, isn't it? And I think that's very much true to what we saw there. I think if you had less than wholesale changes and you maybe introduced Vi with, for example, the typical Maeda in front, or, Forrest in front, Carter Vickers alongside Trusty, and obviously Johnson instead of Ralston, that kind of sort of minor. You could have got, I thought we would have changed the two. I thought we would have took out Scales. I thought we would have took out Taylor. I don't think we would have taken out everybody else around them. So I think you don't get that sort of level of stability. You still need people to be, directing the traffic as it will, particularly for the back. And I think particularly for Kasper Schmeichel, it's maybe a wee bit unfair on him, because he's trying to be the cement. He's trying to be the glue to sort of, chaperone and shepherd that defence around. He's taking the mantle when normally he's got Carter Vickers there. He's got Johnson. He's got capable deputies around him that will help, spread out the wealthy sort of knowledge, experience, and where the guys need to be. So I think that was very, very. Thank you very much, Terry. It's absolutely beautiful to see you in the house. Make sure you be checking out Terry when he gets himself on some shows over at the Bhoys of Us. Top man. So anyway, we started the game, and I thought that I was quite surprised, to be honest. It was Falkirk that were coming out of traps. Now, we get an early shot off, and it's James Forrest. He manages to weave in, and it's a brilliant shot to get off, but it gets tipped around the post. So you're like, okay, right, here we go. Yeah, it's early signs. But what I did think is compared to games we've got, we're only talking the opening sort of 5 to 10 minutes, but for me, you could see that we had made those changes. You could really could see that we had made so many changes, because the turn of play, the speed, the purpose that we've been getting so accustomed to, it just wasn't the same. Now, of course, as I say, when you make that many changes in a game, you can't expect it to be perfect and it to be, like slapping an old pair of jeans on, but it's exact same. But I do think that you could notice We were used to the passes, as I say, has been sort of crisp and purposeful, 1, 2, 3, straight in, getting advances, getting up the sides. It wasn't quite so much that for me. It looked a wee bit disjointed. It actually had a whiff of what we saw kind of early last season for me, where it was kind of, right, I've got the ball and, standing about, right, who wants it? Waiting for somebody to pass off a shot, and then that shoehorning it side to side. It was all rather laboured. It was a bit sort of sticky. You could see the fluidity of the play just wasn't quite there. And as I said, that comes with, dropping out so many of your regulars. Obviously, you had, McGregor in there, but as we saw last season, whenever the rest of the team weren't performing, McGregor was trying to do everything. He was trying to be a man to do so many different things, and it sort of negated his effectiveness in the match. I felt that was very, very much the case here. When we have been so used to having Maeda, Forrest, Kühn being those sort of really energetic, attacking options down the flanks, Palmer, who we will get onto, was completely guff. I'll just say it. I'll lay my cards straight out on the table. I thought Lewis Palmer was an absolute disgrace, and I think that could be his death knell in his coffin, because that was a shambles. I think that when you look at the level that guys have been playing at, that aforementioned, Maeda, Forrest, Kühn in particular, as I say a million times and said in this channel, every time you come into Celtic, whether you are getting 60 minutes, half an hour, 5 minutes, whatever, chances at Celtic are absolutely finite. And every time you get minutes on that field, you need to show something. You need to prove your worth. You need to give the manager something to think about and show why you've got a position, not even on the starting lineup, but why you should be on the bench and in around it. And for me, Lewis Palmer offered absolutely nothing, and I don't think that helped us with how the play was sort of panning out early on. As for Rio Hatate as well, another guy who I felt was quite culpable. Yes, I'll be pointed to the fact that he crosses one in, that gets headed down for Bernardo's fantastic goal, but I thought, again, he was a guy who, whenever he was being looked upon to be one of the bright sparks, one of the more regulars who should be stepping up to the mark and showing something, I thought he was very, very disjointed once again. And again, coming back to the video that I'd done, talking about the Champions League, talking about the midfielder selection, this is the exact points that I am proving and saying why I don't think when it comes to crunch massive games, particularly those games away, I'm looking at Dortmund, I'm looking at Atalanta, that's why I wouldn't play Hatate. Because I've seen some people saying there about his body language and he looked poor and things like that. I completely agree. Hatate is, in some cases, a wee bit similar to Samaras, where if the game is going his way, he is like a house on fire and you're just struggling to stop him. But if things aren't coming off for him, he drifts and he comes in and out. And that mental resilience to get in, dig in and keep going isn't quite there for me. So I think that's something that is a big disappointment for him. Bernardo, obviously, being on the pitch and staying the way through. I thought, as I said as well, previewing him, Steady Eddie pops up with a goal, but he was doing a lot more. He was doing a lot more than Hatate was. Certainly, we saw Engels coming on, talking about impact again. Look at the amount of effort that he's putting in there. So yeah, very, very poor start for me. Sluggish, slow. The speed of play, the tempo, the rhythm, none of it was really there for me. And it came then as no surprise that Falkirk were the ones that took the lead. I think you've got to say about John McGlynn, fantastic job that he's doing there. Absolutely. This is a team, remember, that have been together with this manager for a couple of seasons. So they're well drilled. And I think we'll come back to hindsight being a great thing and we'll look at the amount of changes we've got. And it was actually quite funny because I don't know if you saw the interview at the end with Adam Idah, and they basically asked him in enough words, what do you think happened there? And the big man, for right or for wrong, I think I'm just paraphrasing, words to the effect of, maybe we took them for granted. Maybe we didn't expect them to be as good as they were going to be. And that's something that was slightly disappointing to hear, but I can understand it. And maybe that's exactly what Celtic did. You forget, you've got a team who are well drilled with John McGlynn at the helm. He plays fantastic football. He does all the right things. He wants to attack. And coming to Celtic Park showed absolutely no fear about who he was up against. They played their style, they played their identity, much as the way that we talk about that we kicking on and we done against Bratislava, going to Europe, going to these other games against bigger teams and play the way that we want to play, then hopefully you'll get a result. They were on the cusp of doing it. It just was at the end of the day, we had that extra with several levels of quality to bring off the bench that were always just going to blitz them as the game dragged on. But 1-0 they go up, ball's played in, Zvai gets caught underneath it. I think, as I say, it was sort of any jewels that he had today for me. That was just something that he'll obviously, he'll come to get used to it. We know ourselves, Scottish football, it's not exactly hammer thrown, but it is quite a physical game. You do have to have a wee bit of sort of strength, and I thought he was kind of bullied. It gets under him, it gets back to it. Now, the one thing that I didn't like about the goal here was, and again, take it as you find it, when the ball gets played back, Hatate just completely loses the boy that's running. He just sort of nonchalantly is dossing up like, oh, he's away from me. Trusty doesn't press out. Now, the things that we've always been doing is those loose balls, those balls that have been cut back to player. There's been multiple guys closing in, making the hard press, making themselves big, causing a nuisance. Doesn't happen there. The guys get the time to get the shot off. Hatate isn't even putting him under any level of pressure, trying to get up behind him. Trusty doesn't even commit. He doesn't come. He stays still. Actually puts his hands behind his back and lets the shot go off. It's McIver into the bottom of the goalkeeper, Schmeichel's left-hand side. It's a good finish. It's a great finish, but it's disappointing from a Celtic perspective. And in terms of the sort of defensive work and the things that we had been used to seeing, as I say, for example, the press and things like that, I thought it was very, very disappointing from that element from ourselves. But thereafter, nothing really changed. What I was saying about with Celtic being, for me, quite laboured, we just continued to look as if we were going through the motions. There was nothing of any great quality in terms of getting off shots. With Idah playing up front, not Idah playing up front his own. We just didn't. We had Idah playing up the top. Sorry, my head's up my backside here. Idah comes off. Sorry, my bad. Look at this state of me here. So we're not playing the strengths up front. We're just passing the ball about nonchalantly. Nothing is really coming off for us. It's really quite difficult for us in terms of what we're doing. We're looking about, passing around the ball, side to side, back, forward, in and out. Idah looking for those runs, not finding them. It's hard to tell. We usually, when we've got in usually sort of when we have in Kyogo, we've got somebody, track runs. Are two different types of players, we say. As we saw with some of the Idah efforts, he gets himself into good positions. Of course he does. But unlike Kyogo, it's constant movement. And that's one thing that we didn't do today, and I thought was quite disappointing. When you looked at a lot of our games, the early stages of the season, the one thing that I've really commented on a lot, I've been really, really positive about, is the constant movement on the ball and off the ball. You've always got players recalibrating their position, moving around, looking for the ball. Everything just looked very flat-footed for me today. I just felt as if it was back to like early on last season, where it was as if guys were getting the ball, they were sort of looking around, looking for the options rather than the options being presented to them and knowing the pass and where it had to go. So that's why it didn't quite come off for us. But then Falkirk continued to play their game, and actually before we get the equaliser, they have a couple of good chances. And once again, I just think that for us, it's quite slack in terms of defensiveness and how we don't really track the runs. We're a bit lax with it coming in. And it could have been, against a side with that wee bit extra quality. I genuinely think that they could have scored a second earlier on than they did. Of course, we end up getting ourselves back into it. Rio Hatate, who I've not really been too happy about in terms of the past sort of one or two performances from him. As I say, I think he can drift. It's a nice wee chip ball in. Vi managed to header it down. What would you say about that goal from Bernardo? It's an absolute topper, isn't it? To take it and hit it on the volley, that clean for the centre of the box. Goalkeeper's no saving that. Fires it straight in. At that point, you're thinking, right, here we go. We've got a foothold in the game. This is it. They'll maybe have seen their wee sort of burst of, optimism, and we're going to suck out of them. But didn't actually. Nothing actually changed in terms of the way that Falkirk went about their business. And they kept on probing, they kept on pressing, and then they get their second goal just before half time, and it's a header. And again, if we look at it defensively, point at who you want for that one. For me, the central defenders have got to do a lot better, because ball comes straight over, he's got a free header. He's right in the centre of the box. He's gone unchallenged. There's nobody close to him. There's nobody even jumping up to challenge for the header. Rooted to the spot. Free header again over to Schmeichel's left-hand side. For, 2-1. An absolute shocker. And, well, here's the thing. The amount of players that came in the day, some of them did look clueless, as you say. It is a wee bit disappointing. As I say, I think when we look at the Celtic squad at this moment in time, and we look at where we are, undoubtedly, when it comes to, we have our first 11 on the pitch, and we have our top picks. You know what you've got, and we can play the way that we play, and you'll have no sweat. When you're then looking at taking somebody off, quality, yes, we've got kind of like for like, and that works when you are bringing off 2 or 3 players, supplementing them. Works perfectly fine, because you can pick up from where you left off. I think what we maybe saw today was that we do have quality, but in terms of making these wholesale changes, we don't have sufficient quality across all positions, particularly, as I says, at the back. In terms of the first half performances, as I says, other than the movement, the slow build-up, etc., there was a few performances that I didn't think too much of. I thought that Trusty, I thought Vi looked a wee bit off the pace. They eventually did sort of find their way into the game. I wouldn't go as far to say as they looked assured or they looked, solid, but they looked passable. In terms of Stephen Welsh, again, I don't really like to sort of downtrodden a guy that's one of our own, but I've said time and time again, I really just don't think that in the long term that Welsh is the solution here. I know there was interest in him, as we discussed through the pre-season. I think we had to keep him around. Certainly it appeared that there was no intention of letting him go, despite some of the interest, obviously, for that homegrown quota, etc., for the Champions League. Then I think that, that's the only reason he's about, because I didn't see enough from him today in terms of even just distribution. When he was getting the ball, there were several times where he was just passing the ball into a no man's land and not even finding a man. We sit here and sometimes criticise Liam Scales for sort of picking the ball up and trying to maraud into the middle of the park and then put a pass and misplacing it, but he's got substantially more quality in that department than Welsh does. Also, as well, in terms of the positioning, particularly look at that header as well. For me, that's an absolute scandal. And you've got to be looking at Welsh. It's his man, essentially. It's over his side, and there's nobody there. There's nobody absolutely challenge him. So very, very poor. I also thought as well, Ralston as well. I thought Ralston was really disappointing in that first half. And that's the thing. It talks about the quality. Listen, Ralston is a guy who is committed, wears his heart on his sleeve, and he'll give you absolutely everything that he can. But it's horses for courses. When you bring him on, when you're kind of cruising in a game, yeah, he'll step up and he'll plug the hole and he'll do what he needs to do. I think as a starter, and yes, look, I know it's against Falkirk. Maybe does that make it, my opinion here, does that make the way I'm thinking, make it maybe seem worse than it is? Probably because they are of a lower standard, let's be honest here. But again, he's a guy that's experienced, despite him being in and out and not a first choicer. He's got to be coming in and he's got the experience and he knows what it means. And he's got to be helping out guys like Trusty. He's getting more game time than Welsh. He's even got to be helping out guys like Welsh, and he just wasn't doing it. So for me, very disappointing. It was the backline in general for me was the real sort of letdown of the whole first half, and generally speaking, most of the game. Obviously, the result, we get there and it's overall quality, and we'll touch on that because we'll start to go into what happened in the second half. But I just felt that if we look at it as a whole, lots of positives, yes, but essentially it took for us to make, again, wholesale changes to bring on the quality to get it over the line. And by that point, it didn't really matter who we had at the back because, we were starting to tear away and we were able to just deal with it regardless. But I think we saw quite clearly, plain in sight, that we do have quality and we can intersperse and we can chop and change one or two. But when you go to that level, there just isn't that proper level of depth that's there. So anyway, we go in 2-1 down at half time. come out. Second half, I actually thought we'd maybe see some changes earlier on, but not so much. We didn't. And in terms of the game, it was much the same. Picked off where it left off. Celtic again for me start the second half trying to do the right things, but not entirely coming off. Just again, just seemed laboured, seemed drawn out. And at that point, I'd never really thought, because I knew what we had on the bench, I never really sat and was thinking, we're going to go out here. I knew that we would eventually get there, but it didn't make it an easy watch for me. I always felt it was getting dragged out, but eventually we do. We get a complete raft of change, and this is where everything transforms. With Rio, Palmer, Forrest, Vi all coming off, introducing Engels, Yang, Kühn, and Taylor. And what an absolute difference maker that was. Let's get ourselves straight down here. I think that it's undoubtedly Nicholas Kühn is the man of the hour. 2 goals for him. 2 goals for Idah, who was on for the start, by the way, despite my daftness and tripping over my words there. He came on, and within 8 minutes, he was able to show Palmer up. He was able to just completely show Palmer up, because the amount of work that he done in that space of time was, just blew him out the water. Even Yang, who another guy who, for me, when I've been speaking about Yang, I've not been overly convinced by him. I've never really felt that he's, ready to hit the ground running. He showed flashes of brilliance. He showed some great signs that there is a player in there, as the saying goes. But for me, again, he's always been a wee bit sort of hot and cold, and he's dropped out, and maybe he needed to drop out of the side. Maybe he needed to be taken out for a wee while to sort of reassess everything, to learn for the guys that have been, coming on and looking at what they're doing right, the work rate, the purpose, taking on their man, etc., etc. And I think when he came on, certainly, as I said before, taking the chances, showing something in the minutes that you get, and I thought he was full of energy. I thought that he was tracking back, he was tackling, he was trying to get himself involved, and again, just showing something, showing the right attitude. It's all about attitude and application when you play for Celtic. You play for an intense playing side. It's all about running, it's all about energy, it's all about commitment. You need to be playing to the sort of game plan, not playing to yourself. It's a team game here. And for me, looking at Palmer, he was very much, Palmer's about Palmer. And that's why 0 assists, 0 chances created, 0 shots. One thing that I always said about him is for a winger, he's one of the most flat-footed and slow wingers that I've ever seen. Again, I'll say it, people keep on bringing me back, and they'll talk about his, hit rate, his stats. He had X amount of goals and X amount of assists. Yes, yeah, he did. And well done, because, it was valuable for last season. But as I say, once you remove that and say, if you took the goal or you took the assist out of X of those performances, how good was his actual game when you watched him? Because I thought, like today, he's been largely poor. And I think that those goals and those assists in a lot of those games covered a multitude of sins, really covered up the deficiencies on his side. And I genuinely thought that with him sort of getting left out in the cold a wee bit, and we've heard him speaking, he spoke a wee while ago, and he actually was quite positive. We obviously had that resilience thing, and everybody thought throwing the toys at the pram, he wants away. But then he spoke again, and he spoke about the importance of playing for the team, and it's a team game, and he understands, and he'll take his chances when they come. You thought, all right, okay, he's sitting down, he's taking in the message, and it's going to transform him, it's going to push him on the right direction. But it's quite clear at this moment in time that words are cheap, because actions do speak louder than words. And he had a good run at it today, a good run of time on the pitch, and he done absolutely nothing. I think what some people call the square root of fuck all. And, his tea could be out. There's a few folks saying here, I wouldn't be surprised if we seen him moved on in January. Well, do you know what? Actually, I wouldn't be adverse to that. I think, there we go. We should have had about 3 signings of the Engels quality. Of course, you could argue that we maybe do, if you want to look at Idah and Bernardo. Of course, we are technically standing still with those signings, but still there is some real top quality there as well. And I think as well that we've got to look at some of the guys that have been brought in. Vi, again, it's a loan. Would I have expected him in a wee bit earlier than by now? I would have expected him to get a couple of minutes here and there, but undoubtedly we do need some extra quality. We'll need to see how things go, but I'm not concerned domestically, and I do think that in terms of looking at the Champions League, as long as we have our strongest 11, I think we'll do fine and we'll get enough points, particularly at home. I think this moment in time, if you were asking me to gamble and put a number on it, I reckon a minimum of 9 points for Celtic, but I'm really thinking maybe closer to 10. That's what I think I would expect Celtic to get at this moment in time. But yep, Jan comes on, energetic, showing a lot more. Forrest continuing to probe about doing what he's doing. So I'm quite happy with that. Rio Hatate comes off, so says quite a disappointing day for me, for him. I think Bernardo scores a good goal, but again, as I said previously when I was talking about him, he does all the sort of boring stuff and he does it very effectively and very tidy. And with him doing that, it's quite surprising to me that as being a quote unquote less, attack minded or less attacking threat, he was more of a threat than Rio Hatate and provided a lot more attacking impetus than Rio Hatate. But there you go. But comes round, we get our equaliser, 70 minutes, and it's big Adam Idah. And again, it's a nice wee passage of play. One of the guys that I'm criticising involved in it, Ralston, but it's a nice centre tap in. You've got Ralston, plays it through to Kühn. Kühn's on the pitch, does what he has been doing, slides it across, big Eddie's there to smash it home. And it was good to see him getting another goal under his belt. 2 goals in as many games, that's got to go for confidence. And as well, talking about the chances, talking about the opportunities, he seems to be now picking up. He had a goal that was obviously chopped off previously, then he got his goal, then he get that goal there. So that's him, had a few in the net, albeit one was cut off. And in terms of chances, didn't have too many chances at all to write home about, but taking them when they come, and that's what we need. We need that sort of, killer instinct. And again, we'll look back to the Bratislava game. Yeah, do you know what? The score was fantastic. But again, as I commented when I'd done that, and you look at Kyogo, he had some good chances, 2 amazing chances. They fluffed these lines on him. Yeah, he gets his goal. How much he knows about, I don't know. But he gets his goal anyway. And same with Maeda, 2 good chances there. Again, he pops up in our goal to make amends. But just when we look at it, you want guys to be, only maybe missing one before they hit another one. We want that kind of striker. We want a guy that when something's presented to him, he's putting the ball away, particularly for Europe, because as I says again, it's fine when you're playing against the, Bratislava, the equivalent to, a Scottish League Falkirk. I'm not saying they're the same thing, but what I mean is we're expected to beat them. Then you will get chances and you can get away with missing a few. But if that's Dortmund away and you've missed 2 or 3 chances, you don't get the allowances that you're still going to stay ahead, because they probably come back and punish you. You've really got to take them as and when they come. So it was good to see him putting the ball into the net after such short chances were coming his way. And then, of course, we start to pick up and we get another one. We go 3-2 up again, and it's fantastic. We get self 3-2 up again. He's in there. Kühn with the ball in, and it's fantastic. We can't argue with that whatsoever. In terms of Kühn, I'm running out of words to say about him, because he's the man that really kicks the game on for us here, and he's the one that gets on the score sheets again, making it 4-2. Chip over the keeper. We'll talk about that ball through, though, from Arne Engels, deep in his own half. He's almost falling as he plays the ball over, straight through. Kühn bearing down the goalkeeper. He's got the speed, he's got the pace, but he's also got the composure to just lift it over the goalkeeper and put it in the net. It's a fantastic finish, really, really composed. And, people were saying when I was sort of getting excited in the pre-season about Nicholas Kühn, it's too early, keep your powder dry. But I think everything about his game is just really levelled up. And, we were looking for that creative spark. We've been getting it now down both flanks, but with Jota going away, it sort of says we've not quite replaced them. Now, they are 2 different players, but in terms of getting damn close, I think if Nicholas Kühn continues this level of form throughout the course of this season and adds to the already healthy goal tally and assist tally that he's got, all this pining for Jota could become a thing of the past. Now, listen, I wouldn't be adverse to him if we were saying, would you want him in January? Well, of course I would. But just talking broadly, I think if Kühn keeps on pushing on this way, we will be. There we go. What's your thoughts? Because San Fran's think that he's a better player. Two different players. What I'd say is I think he's more direct. There's a lot more tricks and fancy things in Jota's, utility belt, but I think Kühn certainly on this form at least, as I say, it's a long season. He's got to keep up. I think that he is very, very good and very, very impressive, very direct, and he's shown everything that we need. And he's also, performing, and he put one chance out in the European game. Great performance there as well. So it was good. It's all about keeping it going on and keeping it going on. Puts us 4-2 up, but as I say, another great ball through from Engels. Perfect pass through. Look, he's another guy that's had a brilliant start to his Celtic career in games at Parkhead, isn't it? That's what £11 million gets you. As Terry says, that's the level of quality. Money doesn't always guarantee quality, but in his case, it certainly does. But it's not long before the game is properly put to bed, and it is, of course, more of the same, isn't it? Because 5-2, Kühn gets the strike off. Absolutely fantastic. He's sitting there, ball comes across, strike outside, keeper's left, home and dry. We've absolutely killed it. What an impact. What an absolute impact for that guy. I'm just running out of things to say about him. I'm sitting here, for a guy who normally got a lot to say, I'm sitting and think to myself, what else can I say about him? He's certainly producing the goods, and that's exactly what we need to see. We need to get it. We get a quick fire 2 off Idah, and then we get 2 off of Kühn. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Idah, both his goals, very nice. Slides them under the goalkeeper. Confident finishes, taking them as they come. Minimum amount of touches, confidently slotting them home. They're almost kind of identical, actually. They're pretty identical goals. In fact, the 2 goals plus the one that he scored prior, they're almost identical goals. But that's what I want. He's in the box and he gets the shots off. Confident, doesn't over-labour it, doesn't overthink it. The one where he touches the ball, he touches past, very reminded me of Gary Hooper, remember, against Rangers. Now, it doesn't quite have the same explosive run, but he just, one wee touch, he knocks it between the 2 defenders. He gets through and he just sweeps it past the goalkeeper. Similar to the way, as I said, that Hooper did that. He just, that deft touch to knock it by. I think it was at the time, it was Big Weir, and his soul leaves his body and he puts the ball in the net. But I think that's, that's what we need. And in terms of looking at it, getting into next week's game, for me, well, it will be back to the sort of status quo of starting guys. But up front, I would actually play Adam Idah, because of the limited opportunities that he was given, he puts them in the net. And particularly the ones I says where he pushes it past the defender, he self-creates the goal himself and he puts it in. So you get a wee variation there. Creates one for himself essentially, and he's got another one, but he's right in the right place to find the cross ball and sweep it home comfortably. That's exactly what we need. So get into next week. I think that's what we should be doing. I would be starting Adam Idah. He's got a couple of goals under his belt now. 3 goals. His confidence will be absolutely brimming. And I think as well, talking about just wanting to push other guys, to push Kyogo, to give him a reminder that, you're not a certainty here anymore. I think that's what we need. And that's definitely what we saw the benefit. We cast our mind back, going back now a wee bit now. But that was the thing about Giakoumakis. He made Kyogo a better player just by being on the pitch, taking chances when they were few and far in between, and making his own luck. And it made Kyogo sit there and go, do you know what, I really need to be on it when I'm out. And he was on it. Kyogo's always going to be a guy that's going to be quite, not necessarily wasteful, but he will miss a few. Adam Idah, I think, is more going to be a guy who he's either in the game or he's not in the or he's out the game. But when the chances present, he'll put one in the net. I think you can find that Idah will do all the running of the day, get starved of chances, and you'll get one put in front of him and he'll put it in the net. Whereas you'll get Kyogo, who'll get 1,000,001 chances. He'll fire a couple over a bar, he'll fluff his lines a few, and then he'll score a belter and make you forget about it. So for me, I just think I like that. I like the fact of Idah, and he's on it, and he's confident, and he looks as if he's offers something different. He offers something different. I think he's got a more deft touch. He's got a composure that Kyogo doesn't have. I think Kyogo's maybe get more class in terms of what he offers as a striker, but putting the ball in the net, I think that's sweeping changes are not going to work, as we will see. Jury maybe out on some guys. Palma, particularly, I think Palma. It'll be interesting to see what sort of game time he gets in the next few games, if any. Because for me, I think that was just, I think his tea's out. I've just got to say it. I really, really, really disappointed with him. I didn't see enough out of Ralston as well. But again, we've got to look at him and say he is going to be an option rather than a solution. Trusty, I think he needs to get more minutes. I think he needs to be brought on. I know we've been obviously Scales, Carter Vickers. That looks as if it's pretty much going to be the central pairing moving forward. I think that's what we're going to get there. And yeah, as it says, Taylor was very good when he came on, but again, that's what you expect. Taylor has been very, very up and down. He's been very, very up and down at times, but largely he's been very, very good the sort of remaining few games there. Past few games, he's been solid and he's really stepping up. And maybe the fact that somebody's been brought in that he maybe genuinely perceives as being a threat is why that he's maintaining those levels. In terms of where does he feature? Who knows? Obviously, he's alone. There's question marks over that. Is he literally just going to be there because he's going to be a backup to push Taylor? We've heard a lot of chat from the manager about Taylor and getting him. It's imperative to keep him around. We want to get a new contract. So is getting in Vi really just to have somebody to push on Taylor, to remind him that there is somebody there that's off a certain level that will get game time if you're not up for it? So it's really, really hard to tell. In terms of right back, Ralston's always going to be that deputy, nothing more. Centre, we got Narotsky coming on. As I say, it was a bit of a head scratcher for me to bring him on. I was about 85 minutes and I didn't have anything to do. So is that just sort of getting him in there and getting him some game time and minutes? But again, if you look at it, if Trusty's going to be that left-hand sided guy, Narotsky, where does he sit in the pecking order? Welsh as well. If you've got Welsh and you've got Trusty, I mean, I know Welsh has been fitter and around more than Narotsky, but I probably would have played Narotsky simply just because, well, remember, it costs only £5 million. I want to see something out of him. So I would have rather if he get more minutes than just thrown on for five, particularly if he was fit enough to make the bench and fit enough to get a run out. I would have just had to like to have seen him for the start if that was an option, rather than the head scratching inclusion of Welsh. We know what Welsh has to offer. We've seen enough of it, and as I say, I think it's a complete and utter mixed bag. But for me, I think that Narotsky, one, if you want to push him on and sell him or loan him or whatever, he needs to be in and around, he needs to be playing. But also as well, remember how much he paid us. He should be getting some time on the pitch, because we really need to know what's in there, if anything, and if he's worth keeping about. So it'll be quite interesting to see how these ones move on. But as I definitely think moving in to the next sort of couple of games, I would definitely say that there's a good shout for somebody like Adam Idah to get a start. Be interesting, particularly. Obviously, we don't have the Champions League next week, but in terms of the next fixture, away games, how are we going to set up there? Are we going to need someone like Adam Idah? Are we going to need somebody that's going to offer just something a wee bit different? Or are we still going to try and play our game? Are we still going to try and keep the ball on the ground with the fast passing and look for runs in behind Kyogo? Be interesting to see how we go for that one, because as I say as well, talking about the Rio Hattati situation, and I see a lot of folk, there's a few folk now coming in, sort of agreeing that they didn't necessarily think that he was too much up to it. But I think that looking at being quote unquote pragmatic for the European away games, where we need to sort of, burn down the hatches a wee bit. We need to be sort of more compact at times, because if we go out and we play that sort of expansive game, look at what Atalanta did against Arsenal, who, let's face it, are a far superior team to Celtic, right? They are. And they really, really were knocking down the door of Arsenal, who play a very similar attacking style to Celtic. You could argue a better version of it, but that's for another conversation. So we need to try and nullify. So it's admirable wanting to play the Celtic way and go and do your thing, but the managers get big, big decisions for these European games coming up. And as I says, I think for me, just looking at it, I ain't so sure that Rio Hatate is going to be one to do that. And in terms of looking at getting away, talking about taking your chances in Europe, for me, that's why Idah, as I said there, a handful of chances and he took them. Whereas Kyogo, yes, he's a fantastic player, plays very well to get in behind the lines and all that. However, can he be depended on in big crunch games, particularly away games against that quality, to take chances as and when they come? A lot of decisions to be made, but overall, I think a not too bad performance. Quite happy with that one. 5-2. We made hard work off it. The manager laughed it off a wee bit and says, he thought the Falkirk were the best team that have played at Celtic Park this season. A nice wee sort of cheeky rib there, maybe to some teams, including Big Philippe Clement and the Rangers there. But no, I thought that Falkirk gave a very good account of himself. And, fair play to them. They came to Celtic Park, despite the way that we've been playing, despite the amount of goals that we had been scoring, lack of conceding. They came out there and the only team to score 2 goals at Celtic Park this season. So we're only 3 goals to the negative at Celtic Park. You can forgive probably the 2 of them because of the amount of changes that we did. Take it with a pinch of salt. But moving into a game against Aberdeen, I'd be confident for that one, particularly because you know what you're going to get. Aberdeen are a team who are playing very well right now. Good result against Spartans, but again, it's Spartans. They're doing well in the league, but can they keep up those levels? I highly doubt it. And I think on a big pitch, big occasion, with the way that we are playing, Celtic won't be making the mistakes that we made today. There'll be no doubt that we'll be getting top 11, first choice, straight out there. And at the end of the day, that overall quality will succumb and it'll be into a final. Who we play against, is it going to be Marlow, is it going to be Rangers? Doesn't care. Doesn't matter who it is, because I reckon whoever it is will fall to the sword. Anyway, that's us for the day. As it says, Celtic 5, Falkirk 2, decent, got there in the end. Bit of a war, bit of a surprise package. Exciting game for the neutral, but some real positives. Celtic's German man, Kühn, continuing to pick up where he left off, showing that he's definitely one to keep an eye out for. And certainly at this early stages of the season, I know it's mega early, but he's Celtic's player of the season so far, and long may it continue. Kühn Idah, 2 goals and as many chances today. Big man's got to be brim full of confidence. He's up and running. Celtic have been up and running for several weeks, and it can only get better, I'm sure. So anyway, that's us. Until the next time, as always, you take care of yourself, and hail, and we'll see you back for the next one.